Hello, greetings, welcome, hi. This is the IncGamers podcast. It's number 150, believe it or not. My name is Peter Parrish. I'm here with other people, namely Paul Younger. Hello.
Number 150.
I know. So I think we only brought it back at like 70 or so, and I don't know how many PC-only ones we've done, so the number's a bit meaningless.
Well, I told Ellie there was it was 150th show, and she went, "Oh, you got 150 listeners then." So I thought, thanks.
No. That's a bit of an exaggeration.
I wish we had 150 listeners. That voice was Tim McDonald. Hello, Tim.
Hello. Sorry, I just got an email as soon as you said that. I started reading it.
That's all right. Is it a good email?
Are we doing anything special for our 150th podcast?
Yeah, you're not going to play a game this week during the podcast like last week.
Oh, no. Totally aren't.
No, nothing special planned. Just the usual podcast, I'm afraid. So anyone expecting anything amazing, bad luck. There we go. This week, well, do you know what time it is this week, Tim? Talking to you.
10:49 p.m. apparently.
No, it's Dota 2 update time.
That wasn't even a segue. What does time have to? What? How? Oh, my brain.
It's the new bloom. It's the full bloom. It's anti-sporting bloomers. Tell us about the bloom.
It's an effect that really annoys people in most video games because I don't really know why you have bloom effects for the. Oh wait, you're talking about don't I? Yeah, the new Bloom Festival patch 6.8 and all the wonderful things that they're adding, and this will probably be going live around about the time you're listening to this, dear listener people. There's a load of stuff. There is some mysterious enemy called the Year Beast, who I don't actually know what that is or anything about it. It's really ambiguous. I'm assuming it's going to be another little seasonal game mode, but we shall see. There is a new game mode, random ability draft, where you're randomly assigned a hero, and all of the hero abilities are chucked into a big pool. And the players take turns picking abilities from that pool to take, which completely messes up how the heroes work. So that sounds great.
Sounds mental.
Sorry?
That sounds mental. It sounds chaotic and absurd.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. There are two new heroes. There is Terrorblade, who was announced at the time we're recording this. He was announced yesterday. And today we've discovered that there is also Phoenix, who, as you might expect, is a big flaming bird thing. There's a replay takeover mode that lets you jump into replays and sort of continue playing from that point, which is a really weird feature, but one that might be kind of interesting, I suppose. There's all sorts of stuff. Massive changes, massive, huge.
That replay thing sounds sort of like, I don't know, if you're doing like a post-mortem of your battle, and like, what if we'd done this at this point? Would we have won, kind of?
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of cool.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, from what I can gather, you basically need 10 players. I don't know if AI can fit in as well, but you need people to sort of take over each of the players. But you can do it with any replay, not just your own. So you can go back to pro matches or something like that. And you can say, okay, well, this is where a battle went horribly wrong for them. Let's see if we can do better if we swap in.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, which it's quite a nice idea. I don't know that I'll ever make any use of it. But with that in mind, it sort of reminds me of the all the shit that FIFA and Pro Evo did with historical matches or whatever it was.
Well, FIFA has this thing where like every week they'll go like, you're 2-0 down, can you come back and win 3-2, unlike the real team who were rubbish and didn't manage to do so. Stuff like that.
It seems as though you could use it for stuff like that if you have enough people to play with. There's a huge bunch of stuff in there. It's quite a nice update, particularly because they now actually appear to have sped up the rate at which they're doing these updates. Over the past few months, we've had more new heroes and more new stuff than we basically did over the entirety of last year, which is really good. Something I'm happy to see.
Do we know what the new game mode is? Like, so Frost of Us did a kind of wave horde modey thing, co-op thing, right? What's this one?
I honestly don't know, and I don't know whether it is a new game mode or whether it's a sort of a random thing that happens in matches. It's really hard to say because the actual text for it, the lore text, is incredibly ambiguous. It says, okay, yeah, you need to get these items and you can use them to craft into weapons that you can use to fight the Year Beast. And then the lore about him says, he turns up really randomly. You never know when he's going to turn up. You might be waiting for ages for him to appear. And it's like, okay, is that just lore because it's only sort of once a year that he's going to be around, this period, or does it mean that it's random whether he'll turn up or what? I don't know.
Yeah. It's not like Valve to be vague. That's all right. Well, that all sounds quite interesting. If you're into Dota 2.
Okay. I was waiting for that caveat. I was going to say, really? You thought that interesting? Wow, I'm impressed.
As an abstracted set of patch notes for a game I don't really play, not hugely interesting, but I can appreciate what they're doing to this game and how they're keeping it fresh and adding stuff. It's all good. Speaking of more new stuff, we've had a man over in Miami this past week at ParadoxCon looking at all the Paradoxy map-based goodness. He's not here, but he sent us his reports so we can reflect upon them.
I did ask him to come on the podcast tonight, and he said, I just don't do public appearances. So, there you go.
All right. Tom remains a man of mystery.
Do we have to pay him to get him to make public appearances? Can we not afford him?
Well, anyway, we can still go over what was announced, I think. We've read his reports. The majority of them have gone up on the site. Probably all will be up by the time this is out and broadcasting. What we got? We've got Hearts of Iron 4, which is the latest World War II. That's still fighting World War II, everyone. It's still going on. This is the latest attempt at it, which kind of sounds like they've learned lessons from Europa Universalis 4 and Crusader Kings 2. They're trying to make it a bit more accessible and scary words like that. So the sort of hardcore historical fan base are currently freaking out a bit, going, "Oh, it's going to be dumbed down. It's going to be, all of this and that." Which it's interesting. They kind of operate on a different spectrum to the rest of us because they look at Europa Universalis 4 and think it's dumbed down, whereas the majority of people look at Europa Universalis 4 and go, "That's quite scary and confusing. I'm not sure I can get into that game." So, from my point of view, Hearts of Iron 4 being easier to get into sounds completely fine.
You know what they're going to do though to please these hardcore types. They're going to announce another Victoria game, and they're going to make it even more confusing than it was before.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think they're on an accessibility kick right now, Paradox, because they've found that doing that means their games sell quite well because people can play them and enjoy them.
More than 7-8 people.
It's worked quite well for them for the last couple of games. So while I can appreciate that if you're super hardcore into micromanaging every single tank on the battlefield or something, you might be a bit disappointed. But it's kind of the.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but was Victoria, is that kind of reputed as being the most impenetrable of the Paradox Grand Strategy games, or?
I don't. It might have used to have been. Well, people always used to say start with like Europa Universalis 3, so I guess it wasn't that. Maybe Victoria. Well, maybe one of the early Hearts of Iron. Paul, you said you played the first Hearts of Iron.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
What kind of experience was that?
That was a long time ago, and I can't remember anything about it at all. But I probably had the complete fear, no doubt. That's when my brain was probably a bit younger, and I could, understand things a bit better. Didn't have big buttons or anything like that, but for my special old brain. But I can't remember anything about it.
You've brought up an interesting point there, actually. Do you guys have that problem as well, that when you were younger, you found it a lot easier to get into really complicated games with really obtuse interfaces?
It's just
I don't know whether it's a case of my brain just doesn't work now, or whether it's a case of there is now so much choice and so much around that if I can't figure out a game within 10 minutes...
No, see, this is it. As you get older, time goes faster. So, effectively, you then start becoming more impatient, and so you don't want to sink as much time into something because your days go quicker. That is my theory, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's, well, a sort of choice and exposure thing. I mean, I'm less inclined to put up with a really awkward and obtuse interface if I kind of realise now it doesn't have to be awkward and obtuse. You could have written a better interface for this and I'd have been having a much better time. Whereas before, if I was younger and I had loads of time, less games to play, I probably might have thought, oh, I'll stick this out, I guess. This is a bit confusing and weird, but whatever, I'll deal with it.
It's kind of what I'm thinking, because I play a lot of old games. I'm a bit of a gaming historian to some extent, and a lot of them I know full well that I simply couldn't play them now if I hadn't played them 25 years ago. Like Carrier Command, fantastic game, horrible fucking interface. If it weren't for the fact that I know how to work it now already, and I played it for the first time now, I'd probably play it for about 5 minutes before just giving up in disgust.
Yeah, but you got to hit the nail on the head. There's more games now than there ever was before, so you have more choice, which means there's more people creating games and there's more creative people involved in games. So generally, with a larger creative pool, they're going to have better ideas on how to do things. So,
and I think a lot of them have obviously played each other's games, and when people come up with a good interface and a good way to present information, people iterate upon that, and so they kind of gradually keep getting better, even if they're more in-depth in what you can... I mean, Carrier Command, really, you couldn't do that much. I mean, you can send your carrier around to different places, you can launch your different types of ships, and you can go on the island, but there's not huge amounts of depth, and yet the interface kind of makes it seem like it's an obtuse nightmare. It's like some kind of tank simulator or something, but it's really not that bad.
In fairness, if you're trying to pilot your carrier and a couple of the mantas and a couple of the walruses at the same time, it can get a little bit overwhelming, and you kind of need to set it up so that they don't just crash as soon as you leap out of a manta to go and control something else. You're right in terms of it's not the most ridiculously in-depth game in the world, but there is quite a lot to do.
It's a lot of, it's a sensory problem, because you're trying to follow about 3 or 4 different things at once. Anyway, Paradox games.
Whoops.
Sorry, it's an interesting tangent as per usual.
No, it's good. It's good. They're also doing Rune Master, which I think is going to be their sort of... is it probably their first in-house RPG? I'm scared of saying something like that, because probably back in the day, maybe they made something that I've completely forgotten about, but...
Paradox not made everything at some point.
They've certainly published everything. But their development team has generally stuck to Victoria, Hearts of Iron, etc., etc. Not a lot about Rune Master out at the moment. I kind of went between thinking it looked a bit like a Diablo type thing, and I thought, no, actually it's more like a King's Bounty type thing, where you move your hero around on a kind of open world map, that then get into fights that are turn-based and hex-based, where you've kind of got like an army backing you up and stuff like that. So I think it's more King's Bounty-ish than Diablo-ish, personally. It looks kind of interesting. They say the world's going to be procedurally generated in some way. Choices to make. It's based around Vikings, which, the Banner Saga has recently shown can make for fun RPG times, so that's all good. Don't really know much else about that one. And to wrap up quickly, so we're not spending forever on Paradox, they're also doing a couple more DLCs, one for Crusader Kings 2, which gives you like all of India to mess around with, which is interesting, and one for Europa Universalis, which is trading company stuff. So I might have to work out how trade works finally, which is a bit disappointing, because I've got by not knowing how trade works for quite some time, and I've been enjoying that.
Basically, Peter, you buy low and sell high, or is it the other way around?
How do my
All I know is you do buying and you do selling, and somewhere along the lines you make loads of money.
How does sending my merchant to a trade node to forward trade factor into this system?
If you give me a couple of minutes, I can come up with a really stupid explanation.
It might be accurate. I don't know. Still haven't really figured that out. So that's that. We saw last week. We saw some of Shadow of Mordor finally, which turned out to be Assassin's Creed and Batman meeting Lord of the Rings, which kind of surprised me actually. I wasn't expecting it to take this direction really.
No, I was kind of expecting another third-person hack and slash game.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I was too. Yeah.
I know. Instead, it's a sort of open-world stealth action exploration thing with divergent missions and, well, supposedly divergent missions and choice and the game evolving and adapting to the way you play it and all sorts of other things that make it sound like the best game ever, which it's almost certainly not going to be. But I quite like a lot of the stuff that they're doing with it, and I honestly never thought I'd really say that about a forthcoming Lord of the Rings game.
What did you like best about it from the 8 minutes or so that they've shown us so far?
I don't know. There wasn't necessarily any specifics that I liked. It's just a lot of the ideas, like the way the Nemesis system functions, the fact that you can sort of possess a guy and force him to go and try to assassinate his own leader, and then you can follow it there and use his assassination attempt, use the confusion of that to actually kill him yourself. And
aid your own.
Yeah, as I say, there's no one specific concrete thing I really like about it. It just seems like it's a mishmash of really interesting ideas. I'm not convinced that most of those ideas will work, or at least will work as well as I'm hoping. But if even a few of them come off, it might be a really unique and interesting game.
It was one of those trailers where it had bits like, oh, you've met this guy before and you burned his face in a fire, so now he's going to be like, yeah, it's you, that guy who burned my face in a fire. And it gives you the impression that like this will happen with all kinds of things, like, oh, you stabbed my leg, or you pushed me off a cliff, or whatever. But really, I think we all know it's going to be quite a bit more limited than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the impression it gives. But
yeah,
there's also the alternate possibility, because of how carefully worded everything said about it was, which is that, that was an entirely linear fight, and, it ends with you burning his face and him running away. It kind of makes me wonder, how do all of these people keep getting away? Am I letting them? Am I just really shit at killing them? Do cutscenes happen at the end? I get them down to 0 health and they run out of a door shaking their fists going, I'll get you next time, Gadget, next time.
I did read an interesting thing in one of the previews, which I thought was a great idea, in that when you just kind of die in the regular world, the person that you died to, who killed you, they get promoted, so they kind of move through the hierarchy, which I really like. I like the idea of like little minions who've bested you getting a better job.
That's
awesome. If that can work, that's amazing. So yeah, I think that's how the hierarchy thing sort of works.
I think there's a secret game mode in there in terms of playing it an entirely different way. You can do it like Crusader Kings. You can just let minions kill you so that you can arrange the monster hierarchy to your liking.
Yeah. I want Grok the Goblin to be like the overall leader, so I'm just going to keep running up to him and letting him stab me. And soon he will control everything.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering how they're going to do the ending of this game, because you're trying to get vengeance on Sauron, and obviously that's not going to happen because it's a prequel and Sauron still exists in Lord of the Rings. So,
how much of a prequel is it? Like, when's it set?
That's a good question. I think pre-Hobbit, possibly between Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I'm not. I can't remember. I did read that at one point.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I don't know. I mean, you can certainly be some opportunity. Look, it's fantasy. They can find an opportunity for you to punch Sauron in the face.
And for him to go, oh, you've got me, I'm dead. Oh, wait, I've been reborn through magic.
Yeah, it'll turn out that he's actually gathering all of his power, and he's got enough to become corporeal, and you kill him, and then that sets him back, and now he needs the ring to actually combat and be powerful again. So you actually just set up The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. That's how it's going to work.
You've just solved the problem.
The RPG on the Xbox, what was it called? The Third Age, something like that, which basically had you as an entirely different fellowship following the Fellowship of the Ring. Like, you went through all the locations they went, and you're like, oh no, you've just missed them. You're supposed to be trying to catch up for whatever reason. So you go through Moria and all the rest of it, you find the Balrog and so on and so forth, and then at the end, as I recall, you do actually fight the Witch King and Sauron.
Oh, sure, why not?
So, you know, I'm sure that they can figure out some way for you to stab Sauron in the face.
I did think while watching this that it was taking a pretty big dump on a lot of the Lord of the Rings lore. I'm not sure Tolkien... I was thinking, like, what if Tolkien had seen this bit where, like, you press the button and it's like, whoosh, wraith powers, now I'm chasing down a goblin and torturing him to make him go and beat up his master. And I'm thinking about the kind of distinguished English university don who wrote the original books, looking at that and going, don't really like this or understand it very much. But as you say, the games have already crapped all over that history and lore multiple times already. So
yeah, I mean there is that, and you know what? Actually, no, I'm going to stop talking right there.
Okay.
I'm
yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Alright, well, yeah, moving on. Paul, Sony are killing some MMOs.
Oh, yeah.
There were MMOs I'd never heard of, I'm going to be honest.
I'm trying to recollect it when I wrote the damn thing, but stuff like Free Realms, Vanguard,
Oh, I have heard of Vanguard, actually. I think.
Yeah. Oh, and PlanetSide 1's going free to play with no more development updates, which kind of makes sense, really, because there's now PlanetSide 2. But yeah, this is basically them cleaning house. I guess now that stuff's not making money, although Free Realms was pretty popular. I don't know if it is now. It's been out for quite a long time. It was sort of the kiddie-based MMO, and apparently the president's kids play it. But
oh, really?
Apparently so.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're cleaning house. This was then followed by Reddit with Reddit AMA with Mr. Smethers, and he basically said, "Oh yeah, stuff's not making money. We're basically getting rid of it," and end of story. And then he also teased that there is another game to be announced that will appeal to Star Wars Galaxies fans. Of course, immediately
it's a Star Wars game.
Yeah, well, immediately everyone went, "Ooh, it's coming back! Ooh, Star Wars game!" And it's like, no. He said appeals to. Obviously, they don't even own the license. Why would you can a Star Wars game and then bring it back, or something similar to it in the Star Wars universe? So anyway, that was clarified again today for anyone who couldn't read.
No, it's not going to be Star Wars, but it will be Starfight starring Biff Starwalker.
Maybe they'll get characters from all their canned MMOs and put them in one game, and they can just like duke it out. But what with EverQuest Landmark and EverQuest Next and all that malarkey coming up, they've got a lot of new stuff to come. So I guess now's the time to kill off the stuff that isn't popular. Which goes to my point of why the hell play an MMO in the first place? Because all it's going to take is for it to stop making money, and then you lose everything, all that money, time, and investment. So every MMO will go to the graveyard at some point.
Where do MMOs go to die?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I suppose if you play it like with the knowledge that it will all stop at some point.
But you can't do that after you've spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on stupid hat microtransactions, or the mighty sword of Dobor, or the boots of speed, or whatever it is you've gone and purchased. It's just kind of like, you're not going to get that back. I think actually they should just give you all the money back.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen ever. While we're on a slight MMO tangent, I know Tim and I saw this, especially the Elder Scrolls Online voice cast trailer, which we weren't we didn't have high hopes for, but then it turned out to be kind of brilliant because Michael Gambon was in it taking the piss. Quite magnificent.
Quite a lot of people were taking the piss quite magnificently. Yeah. There were only like 1 or 2 people, I think, in there who took it remotely seriously. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, I saw the email and we debated whether to even do the story, if I remember rightly, when that press release appeared. Oh, Lord of the Rings Online voice cast. Who cares, really? And then I actually started watching it and then started quoting bits of it to you while laughing my ass off, and I actually quite enjoyed it.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing for the game?
Well, the actors obviously had fun, and I think actors having fun leads to good voice acting.
Yeah, I think that this isn't laughing at the video because it's so terrible or anything. This is like, it's actually quite a funny video, and the fact that Bethesda approved this, it indicates that they're reasonably happy with how everything worked out anyway. So yeah, it's decent. Michael Gambon in particular.
He was saying, they've made me play a blind man, and to achieve the effect of the blind man, I close my eyes, which I think is very clever. But then they expect me to read the script with my eyes closed, and that makes me very angry.
I'm very angry at them.
Yes. And then he said he'd most like to be an elf, because elves spend a lot of time sitting around or something. Like, what? Is this some Elder Scrolls thing? Are elves phenomenally lazy in that universe? I have no idea what he was talking about there. But he seemed very into it. Bill Nye was also pretty good. John Cleese, he was actually sort of taking it seriously, but he's John Cleese, so he was quite entertaining as well.
Yeah, John Cleese has not got much of a sense of humour, funnily enough, but there you go.
His bit was nonetheless worth watching. It was actually quite interesting, despite the fact that he was taking the whole thing very seriously. Kate Beckinsale was very boring, but she has the most soothing voice in the world, so that was fine. I could sit through that.
She's very posh.
Yes. And I can't even remember who else was in the video at this point.
Malcolm McDowell. He was also pretty good.
Was it a missed opportunity for Brian Blessed to get a gig?
Possibly, yeah. I don't know. Is there a loud, shouty man who needs voicing in the Elder Scrolls? I'm not sure.
I'm sure they can find one.
Some loud ogre or dwarf or something. Stereotypical.
Let's put it this way: they put John Cleese in the game. I'm fairly certain they can come up with a character for Brian Blessed if they've come up with essentially an English upper class, slightly dithering fop.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's what John Cleese is. That's the character he plays, I should say, and the character he plays in most games he's been in. He did exactly the same thing in Jade Empire, as I recall.
Yep.
So is he basically the Hugh Grant of video games then? He's only got one character that he can play.
He was also in Fable 3, of course, as the butler who was trying to sell you DLC constantly, which did sour me on John Cleese somewhat. Every time I went to my wardrobe, he was like, what if you wanted to dye it black? Well, you'd have to pay for some black paint, wouldn't you? That's a shame. It's quite disappointing. Quite disappointing that.
I don't think he actually said that's a shame. That would be too good. I'd be more surprised if he didn't say it's only 50p and you can do it so very easily by just going over to this section of your wardrobe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that made me sad though. Made me quite sad. Yeah. I don't know. This trailer didn't really sell me on the Elder Scrolls Online, but it did sell me on watching more things with Michael Gambon in them. So it's a win for him, I suppose. That game is going to have a subscription fee and microtransactions and all sorts of and I suppose if you play it on Xbox One, an Xbox Live paywall as well. So you're gonna have to pay about 3 different ways to actually play that game, and then when it stops making money, Sony will close it.
Won't you have to do that on PS4 as well? Because didn't they?
On PS4, it's going to be available to everyone, not just PS.
It's Bethesda, not Sony.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, I forgot this one isn't the Sony one. Bethesda will close it when it stops making money.
Sony might just close it before then. They're closing.
Sorry, ZeniMax. ZeniMax Media will close it when it stops making money, I should say.
I do believe Tim and I are going to be adventuring in Elder Scrolls Online soon. I do believe.
You say adventuring. I'm just going to take a leaf out of Michael Gambon's book. I'm going to start an elf, and I'm just going to sit there.
I mean, we try and avoid MMOs like the plague because they're kind of they're so non-finished. There's no, like I say, there's no ending to it. How can you review something that's continuously being updated?
But it's a coverage nightmare, isn't it? Really,
it is. Yeah, it is. But
it's a coverage nightmare if you consider all coverage in terms of the basic stuff like previews and reviews. But there is absolutely no reason you can't just write other things about it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what we did with Final Fantasy 14-2 online, whatever the hell it was called.
The problem I've got with them though is they're all the bloody same. It's just button mashing and combos. So, Tim, you got your head in your hands, but it's true.
That can't be true.
It is. It's true. Go on, Tim. Come on, say something. Get your head out your hands.
Oh, I don't want to. I was always taught never to argue with stupid people because that with experience.
Oh. Tim McDonald's own words, get out.
I look forward to this Elder Scrolls combo preview diary, whatever that's going to be. That'll be good.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing that it's not going to be almost exactly the same as every other MMO out there. Saying there's more to most MMOs than button mashing.
Yeah.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't.
Let's talk about some other games instead. Paul, I know you. I don't know. Are you allowed to talk about this game that you've been playing that I'm thinking of?
Yeah, we can talk about it. We can talk about it. I just don't know how. What I'm going to tell you about it.
How many people have died so far?
How many of your community have been needlessly starved to death?
I've been playing Banished, which is the should I say city builder? I don't even know if it can be classed as a city, but it is a city builder, but it's more to it than that. Which is
village builder.
It's effectively a city builder, but
it's a negligent homicide simulator.
Yeah, but not in the same way as we think about SimCity, where it's basically zone your areas, everything just kind of runs and does its thing. This is more intense than that. This is basically starting out with a group of Banished, which is the game, obviously, and you have to set up your own colony and build it with about, I think there's a easy, medium, and hard mode in the game, and depending on which one you choose determines what you start with at the beginning, how many families and so on. So you have to build houses, build cornfields, storage, all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of going, hey, city builder, this will be a piece of piss. Let's just whack down a couple of fields, a few houses, and off we go. And they'll just start shagging, and then everyone will be like, they'll have a massive population. Oh no! Literally within, I think, 10 minutes, I had managed to freeze everybody to death, first of all. And then I think I went on, by attempt 4, I'd managed them to figure out how not to get them to freeze to death, but I was actually starving them to death at that point. So from freezing them to death, starving them to death, it's complicated, put it that way. There are key elements in the game that you need to basically get sorted out, and if you don't sort them out early on, which is wood for heat, shelter, food, and there's one other thing which I can't even remember. Oh, wood. Obviously, would have said wood. But if you don't have that stuff sorted out, it can just go horribly wrong. I literally turned away from my machine for about a minute and a half and came back and saw all my population charts were on 0. And of course, the game doesn't end, so I'm just looking at it with my jaw dropped, going, what happened? I just turned away for a minute. But having said that, I'm 8 hours in now, and I have actually managed to get a reasonably big population going. It is not easy because you have each building that you put down, you assign an individual from the game. One of the little characters in the game will become the woodcutter, he'll become the blacksmith. And unlike most games like this, these people are actually, they live up a lifespan. So they're born and then they die. And when they die, they then have to be replaced by someone else. So if your population is not continuously breeding and new children and so on are born, effectively you then won't have people to be able to do the essential jobs you need to do to keep your things running. It's not intensely micromanagey. Once you get past a certain point, I'd say it is at the beginning, but once you get past a certain point, it becomes a little bit easier. But I tell you what, I'm really enjoying it, despite killing everybody and only even probably scratching the surface at about 6 to 8 hours in. I'm really enjoying it, and when I play it, I kind of keep reminding myself, going, like, this game's been made by one guy. There isn't a whole development studio behind this doing all the artwork and the anime. This is one guy has done this, and I've enjoyed it as much as I have now, and more so probably than stuff like SimCity from last year.
Is it pretty satisfying then to get once you actually get over the hump?
There is a big satisfaction. There's a lot of satisfaction from when you get over the hurdle, when you start realising the chain of events. Like I told you an anecdote yesterday, which was the tools issue, where basically all my little guys were like running around. I'm going, oh, look, why they got these little yellow like sort of hammer icons above their heads? And so I discovered that basically the blacksmith hadn't been producing enough tools and putting them in the storage. So as people were sort of harvesting away or mining away or whatever, after a period of time, their tools start to wear out and get damaged, and they have to get replaced by new ones from the blacksmith. My blacksmith had pissed off, and so he'd either died, I don't know what had happened, just given up the ghost, or even though I might have reassigned him to something which I shouldn't have done. But I'd realised that the stock had become short, and it'd come to a point where I couldn't go back. It was really hard to come back from it because I couldn't get enough ore quick enough to get the tools into the hands of the people to hoe the fields and so on. So when winter came, everything works on a yearly cycle, so you have spring, summer, autumn, winter. When winter came and your crops are out, all my crops were screwed. So there wasn't enough food going into the storage. Ultimately, because of the tool issue, everybody starved to death. So, but there was no way. I even went back and loaded up a save game, because you can save at any point, to see if I could try and not make the same mistake. I had to go quite a bit back to make sure that I hadn't screwed things up. So you do have to watch it pretty carefully, and I think that's the appeal of it. You can't, like in SimCity, you can kind of just whack a whole lot of stuff down and just leave it, and then everything kind of does it. So it's not a disaster. But in this, if you certainly from 8 hours or so play now, if you do step away, just don't look after it, you're going to run out of wood. You're not going to have enough ore coming in. Your quarry's going to run out. You might not have set up your trading post yet. There's just a whole load of stuff. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of Pharaoh, or the was it Impressions? I think they did a lot of those. It kind of reminds me a bit of that. There are a lot of elements to that are similar. Although there are things in Pharaoh that are different, like the stuff degrading and so on. Buildings don't change like that they do in Pharaoh. But there's a lot to learn and take in, and with rudimentary documentation, half the fun has actually been figuring out. And you go, oh, what have I done? Everyone's dying. So
that makes it sound even more like Dark Souls, the settlement building game. The fact that you don't really have any clue what you're doing.
It's kind of like, I mean, it's the roguelike city builder. It shouldn't be like that. That's just me being crap. But I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I mean, I literally hours have just ticked by when I'm playing it, which is a great sign.
Well, having a bit of an initial challenge is good, I think. Is it? Go on, Tim. You have a question. Go.
I was just going to say, as long as the mechanics themselves are actually enjoyable, an initial challenge is no bad thing, because you don't mind restarting again and again as you figure it out. That's what I find. There's
a pretty cool thing, like you can tell people to go and chop down trees and stuff, but say something happens and you want to deal with that issue right away, there's a cool little tool that you can use, and you can tell it to basically, you drag it over the area that you have done something in, and you can tell the things to prioritise the work. So they'll stop what they're doing and they will go to where you've told them that is a priority now. Now stuff like that is working actually really well, and it's they're the kind of things that you, in a game like this, you'd expect to be really buggy and just not work.
Like too much SimCity.
Yeah, but everything everything that is working seems to be working as intended, and it works very well. And visually, it's great. You see the little trees sprouting as the seasons come in and out. I mean, it's done a great job on it.
Is it straight up sandbox, this game, basically?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Plot of land.
Yeah, there's no missions or anything like that. I mean, that will probably come with mods and so on, because I think it will have mod support eventually. But bearing in mind that it's one guy, he's obviously got.
No, I'm not saying it needs missions or anything.
No. Well, I kind of thought that. In Pharaoh, you have missions where you might say, "Oh, go and build a pyramid" or whatever it is. But in this, it's kind of like you're left to it, and you just go for it.
Well, that's not necessarily so much of a problem if it's as hard as you say it is, because the mission really is survival. It sounds a lot like, I think I made this comparison to you yesterday when we were talking about it then, but it sounds a lot like Dwarf Fortress. Considerably less complicated and in-depth, and believe me, I'm not saying that as a negative, because Dwarf Fortress is goddamn impenetrable. But it does sound kind of similar to that, in that it's very much a game when it's not so much about building your nice big village and just looking at everything working. It's more a game about desperately trying to stave off failure, which can come very, very suddenly. And yeah, just trying to survive for as long as you can until you ultimately fail.
Well, I mean,
maybe that's just because you're rubbish. I don't know.
Well, the name says it itself. Banished. You've kind of, I am rubbish. Yes. I'm just going to let that comment go. Whew.
Hey, you said that yourself before. I'm basically
he's got them surviving now, Tim. They're not starving anymore.
I'm pretty good at city builders, but I must admit, I think I've been playing so many, especially recently, that I've just been a bit of a doddle. That to go and play something that is a bit of a challenge has been a really refreshing experience. And to that end, I think it's looking really good. I mean, it's 18th of February, I think it's coming out.
Yes, I believe it is.
I'm going to attempt to put a video together for this, but as I explained, it's not the easiest thing to do, because basically I might make my cornfield a little bit small, and then all of a sudden everyone will die and the video won't be that interesting.
I don't know, I think that would actually be a pretty interesting video if
I agree.
If you show off the first sort of 10-15 minutes of the game, if you did actually manage to just completely wipe out your entire civilization in that time,
Tim, I could wipe if I put it on 10 times speed, I could wipe the population out in about 2 minutes probably. So
I'm just saying, a video in which you fail cataclysmically wouldn't necessarily not be interesting. I would definitely watch that.
Yeah, I know you would, because
I think it showcased both the game elements and how bastard hard it is quite well.
And may as well add on to that how shit you are at city builders.
Maybe.
Well, I will say this: I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that you are doing better on this than I would.
Well, I don't know about that, but I've got my mines are all working now, which is cool, and I actually managed to get onto the other side of the river. Although now I'm having a weird issue of where stuff is getting distributed amongst the population, because I've now got a storage yard on either side. So I'm trying to get my head around ranges and paths and stuff. So it's quite complicated. It takes a little bit of research.
Indeed. The thing I've been playing actually kind of fits into this a bit, in the sense that it's quite traditional, old school, challengey. I've been playing Blackguards by Daedalic, which is a Dark Eye based tactical RPG battle simulator, I'm going to go with. It's kind of like, do you remember when video games used to take old board games like Space Crusade and stuff, and they basically used to just kind of recreate them effectively with the AI taking the part of the dungeon master? It's got a little bit of that to it, in the sense that it feels like you're playing a sort of pen and paper Dark Eye campaign, just run by the PC. I mean, the computer PC, not PC as in player character. Which is a bit confusing. So all the battles, yeah, I know. All the battles are like kind of hand-crafted, in the sense that when you went into a room in Hero Quest, everything was laid out as to where it was going to be standing and stuff. So it's not randomly generated stuff. Each time you do a side quest, if it's go and hunt some wolves or go and beat up a dragon or something, it'll be laid out the same every time, which gives them the chance to give you a bunch of like tactical, different tactical opportunities. Like for example, I was hunting a wood troll in the swamps, and the swamps had pockets of swamp gas everywhere. And because the your party is kind of predefined and set, everyone has a mage with them who can cast fire spells. Which means, of course, if you lure this wooden troll creature over the pockets of gas and launch some fire at it, then you get quite entertaining explosive results that will knock significant amounts of health off. Likewise, you can use cover and terrain quite often. Stuff like there might be stalactites on the ceiling of a cave that you can try and lure enemies under, or a swamp to make them run into and fall over and get stuck in, stuff like that. It's very, very, if you're wondering why I'm talking about the combat, it's because it is very combat battle focused. There are, you're given quests and you have scenes of dialogue between your party members and stuff, but you certainly at the moment, a few hours in, you're being led on a relatively linear path through the story. Again, kind of like the DM is making up the campaign for you, and it's not like, oh, wander wherever the hell you want. It's now you're going to go to this town and you'll get these quests, and these quests will have battles attached, and so on and so forth. And yeah, as I said at the start, it is pretty challenging because I haven't played the Dark Eye pen and paper game, and it's one of those systems where like you'll have armor that has, hey, this armor has like 40% protection against bashing damage and 50% against piercing damage, and hey, this is your character development screen, and it's got about 5 different tabs on it for all the different skills that you can unlock and the different attributes that you can boost. And your party has encumbrance, has to eat regularly. There's a lot of dice rolling going on under the hood in the battles that you're not necessarily sure quite what's going on. Like, why did I miss there? I seem to be quite good at using axes, and I've given my guy an axe. Why does he keep missing? I don't know. Is that creature just particularly good at dodging? And it won't tell you, because unless you have animal lore, it won't tell you what that creature is good at, because you don't know what creatures are good at because you don't have animal lore. It's that kind of old school RPG that's really, really not going to help you out much. I'm kind of enjoying it more than I thought I would, honestly. The story isn't that amazing. You're kind of effectively framed for the death of a princess, and then you're having to escape from prison. You're on the run with I'm currently hanging out with a paranoid dwarf and a kind of roguish mage guy. In fact, the mage wants to go to a town specifically so he can bang some baroness. I'm not quite sure why I'm helping him out with that, but it seems like a thing that I should be doing right now. The voice acting isn't that great. It's one of those games where you kind of think you probably could have just stuck with the text boxes, because the kind of demographic you're going for aren't going to miss full voice acting, really, and the voice acting you've got isn't that great. So, but it's very mechanics focused. If you like min-maxing for your sort of hex-based, turn-based tactical battles, I think those people will probably love it. And the people who don't like that style of game will despise it and find it incredibly daunting and challenging and bad.
I did play it a little bit back when it was in early access, back in November, I think, and I got about halfway through the first act or episode or chapter or whatever it's called.
Probably about as far as I, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, probably about that. And I was reasonably enjoying it. Although at that point it was extraordinarily rough and ready, because it was in early access. It was... If you thought... I mean, I haven't played it since. I'm going to assume that they've fixed most of this stuff by now, because there was the issue, like, I'd mouse over things on the radial wheel and it would pop up with tooltip not implemented and things like that. Which wasn't tremendously useful in terms of trying to figure out how to play. Yeah, for the most part, it was reasonably self-explanatory in terms of I've played a lot of tactical strategy RPGs before. It's not too hard to work out the basics, at least. The specifics, perhaps, also. But no, it didn't seem too bad.
It had a quite a friendly thing at the beginning where the character customization is, if you want it to be, can be fearsomely in depth, because you can set it to expert and you can distribute all of your attribute points individually as you choose. You can either be a mage, a ranger, or a warrior. Those are the only classes open to you. But obviously, if you spec it with expert, you might be able to make your own class effectively, because if you know what you're doing, you can put the points into the various places. But yeah, it's quite friendly. It gives you like a basic option where it goes, "Do you just want me to make a warrior for you? Have you never played the dark guy before?" And I said, "Yeah, please, could you do that? That would be great, because I have no idea where to put all these points, really."
Yeah,
so that's nice.
I somewhat foolishly went with mage because
I'm also a mage, actually.
Okay. I was going to say, as a long-time RPG player, I know that mages normally wind up being significantly more powerful than everything else.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, except magic's kind of difficult.
The magic's tricky because you drain through your mana or your astral points pretty quickly, and they regenerate at like 1 point per turn, or at least they do at the moment.
There's like 907,000 spells.
Yeah, that too. Is this one good? I don't know. Is this one good?
750 different spell schools, each of which have 97 million spells, and then each of those have multiple power levels, and oh god, my brain.
It's, like I say, it's a min-maxing delight for the people who worked out, oh, if I get this spell and combine it with this type of warrior, and I can make him basically invincible. Yeah. And for most other people, it's like, oh, you've put points into that spell. Idiot. You've completely fucked your character now.
Yeah.
Thanks, game. So yeah, it's alright. I'll do a video on it, I think, because I don't really... I think the battles might get a bit repetitive after the 30th or 40th or 50th hour of them.
I suppose it depends on how much it changes it up with party members, how big they get, and so on.
Yeah. I will say most of the battles I've enjoyed. Some of them... did you run into crypt lice very often, Tim?
Once or twice. I have a recollection of those things.
Crypt lice can get fucked. Crypt lice are terrible. They make for the most tedious, drawn-out slugfest battles where you just have to kind of hole up and funnel them into a choke point and hit them and hope that they die eventually. And I got to a map where there were like 15 of them on there and said, fuck this, and quit for the night.
Are those the things... there's one map I have vague recollection of where they're coming out of holes in the ground and you need to go and block the holes. Yeah.
That one wasn't quite so bad, because if you blocked up the holes, there were only like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, the problem was I didn't realise that I could block up the holes until about 4 or 5 turns in, and I had to restart that battle.
I mean, that's an indication of the kind of terrain interaction type thing that you can do.
Yeah, there are other bits and pieces like that as well, aren't there? There are sort of even spring traps and things like that too.
There was a point where I was fighting some swamp apes, and there were a lot of bushes on the map, and again I had a lot of fire at my disposal, so I set fire to a bunch of the bushes, and then it kind of spread through and was damaging them and kind of, again, funneling them into a specific point. That was quite cool as well. So it had some really good ideas, and because all the maps are sort of pre-designated, each one is sort of its own little tactical puzzle in a way, which can be quite good, except the ones with crypt lice, which are just a horrible slog and not interesting in any way. But yeah, if you know, mechanics heavy, traditional style, pen and paper-esque, hex turn-based RPG stuff is your bag, and there aren't many of them out there these days, honestly, then it's probably worth looking into, I would say.
Yeah.
Tim?
I don't actively hate it, so that's something.
And yes, they have fixed the tooltip thing.
I
think there's an odd bug in there. it gave me an achievement for having learned all of the spells in the spell book, which is a bit odd because I haven't. But other than that, it's been pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I'm assuming that most of the stuff in there was basically because it was early access, and that it's not going to be quite like that now.
Indeed. Are you playing a game, Tim?
No.
Okay, good.
In right now or in general?
In general. Let's go with that.
Oh, I'm playing quite a lot of games. I was experimenting with the new Dota heroes on the test client when you called to begin this. I've been playing something that can probably be summed up as a cutesy Game of Thrones simulator.
Is that Long Live the Queen?
Yeah.
I'm impressed that I knew what that game was.
So am I, actually. I didn't think you were going to manage that. Yeah, it's. You'll look at the screenshots and go, "Wow, that looks stupid," and then you'll play it and be murdered by your uncle or something like that. Yeah, that's an interesting little title. I've been playing Infinite Crisis a bit as well. I don't know whether I'm allowed to talk about that. I really have no idea what the shit is going on with any
that
sort of...
game seems like it's been in beta for about a year.
Oh, that's like, it's doing a Dota 2, isn't it? It's like going to be in beta for 4 years.
I don't think it's going to be quite that. Nah. I suspect they will actually release that at some point before too long. This doesn't seem to be the Dota style of beta where it's actually basically finished and has been for 3 years before they actually release it.
I think we could have some thoughts on Infinite Crisis. I don't think they'll be listening. I think we can get away with it.
I don't think they can manage it, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm reasonably enjoying it, guardedly. I haven't played it that much, and again, the fact that it is in beta does kind of cause a few problems. I had one match where one of my teammates apparently couldn't see their own character, and one of my other teammates was apparently so lagged that they couldn't move. So that was a 3v5, and it didn't end well. There are occasional issues like that, but for the most part, it's reasonably enjoyable. There are 2 maps. Oh yeah, Paul, you'd like it. It's got more than one map. There are 2 maps in it at the moment, one of which is finished and the other one has a big beta sign slapped over the picture of it. The one that's done is kind of very, very fast-paced. Matches tend to end extremely quickly. That's one where the map is basically one big circle and there are 5 capture points around it. And almost like in Battlefield or something like that, as you capture those locations, the enemy's sort of points drop down, and if they hit 0, you win. You start at a higher level and everything goes much faster and the game ends a lot quicker. And the other map, the one that's still in beta, is much more typical MOBA. In terms of you start at level 1
Creeps.
and there's... Sorry?
Creeps.
Yeah, there are jungle creeps. There are lanes. There's a top lane, a bottom lane, and there's the jungle in the middle. They've got a couple of neat twists though. Like periodically, other bits and pieces will happen on that map. There's a doomsday weapon in the center, which activates periodically, and whichever team takes it can then activate it to blow the shit out of the other team. There's little power nodes around the map that unlock somewhere and that unlock occasionally, and if you sort of get to them and take control of them, then your team gets bonuses for the next few minutes. Just little bits and pieces like that, which mix it up a little and give you a bit more to do other than sit in lane punching monsters. And of course, it's got the DC license, which helps as well, because it means that rather than just playing with Zargathron the Elder, you've got Batman and Wonder Woman, and Superman is due to be added as the next hero, I think. And Green Lantern and the Flash and Zatanna and the Joker and Doomsday and all the DC characters, with more being added in regularly. And yeah, I'm reasonably enjoying it. I don't understand the augment system. I don't understand the items, but I do certainly understand clicking to run around a map and then using abilities to beat up other players. That part I get. That part's good fun, particularly when you're playing as Batman or Zatanna or whatever.
Yeah, that's about as far as I got with it. Actually, I was basically, oh yeah, just run around the map, die a lot, and then run around the map some more, and then die a lot.
I mean, playing Dota as much as I have, I've got a fairly quick grasp of most of the mechanics. It's just like the items and augments confuse the ever-living shit out of me. Like the augment system, I just don't understand at all. This is something... I'm going to try to explain them, and the problem is I suspect 80% of what I'm about to say is going to be wrong.
Well, then don't say it, Tim. You'll make us look like noobs.
No, I'm going to say
Heaven forbid that people think we're noobs.
Yeah, they think that already. It looks like it's kind of a set of little buffs and powers that you can set up that your character has when you start the match. Like, you can have like little boosts to your stats or whatever. You can have, you know, this one item costs less credits than it would normally, so you can get hold of that earlier if you want it. Stuff like that. Except that I don't quite understand how you unlock them, how you change them, or anything like that. So I haven't really experimented with that because it's scary. And the item system is kind of the same as with every MOBA ever. You buy items from your base and you can use them out in the field. They boost your stats, etc., etc. Except there are loads of them. They do really, really varied things like boosting the attack damage of your skills, which is something that doesn't happen in Dota. Lots of little bits and pieces like that, so I mostly just stick to the ones where it says, oh, the game basically has recommended items for you. It goes, you should probably get this. I go,
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll have one of them. Yeah, so a lot of the in-depth stuff behind it is currently confusing and scaring me, but I'm still reasonably enjoying myself. It seems to be fairly well made and fairly enjoyable, even through just the DC licensing, I suppose.
It's Turbine that are doing it, isn't it?
Sorry?
Is it Turbine that are doing it?
I think so, yeah.
The big question is there a home for it amongst Dota 2 and League of Legends?
Was it 27 million people play League of Legends a day, apparently? I mean, what the hell's that about? They all got jobs?
The only... Probably not, no. Well, some of them, their job is playing League of Legends.
Yes, I would imagine that probably half of them are Chinese to begin with. So I think it's got a massive following over there, and considering the population of China, massive following over there translates to, 10 billion people playing it every single month.
It's kind of like the World of Warcraft numbers getting boosted because they got Chinese players.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, they all count as players.
Yeah, no. Well, see, with WoW it doesn't, because they don't pay a subscription, a monthly subscription for WoW.
Right.
Over there,
right.
so
it's, yeah, I see. There's a bit of a division there.
Going back to your question, it's kind of tricky to say whether it has a place. I think it's more League of Legends than it is Dota, from what I've played of it, which means that it's possibly competing with the wrong one. I don't know. I mean, just in terms of being something that I can basically stick on for 20 minutes and just have a quick match, because I can just play on that one map, which is really, really fast and easy to play. I can just try out a new hero on there, and game's over within 15 minutes. There is something to be said about matches and MOBA games that end that quickly. If they try to expand on it a bit more when they get more heroes in, I'd imagine they're probably going to do another few maps. It might be an interesting alternative. I doubt that I would play it as extensively as I do something like Dota, but it does seem to be the sort of thing that I might stick on, for an hour every now and then. Yeah, I'm reasonably enjoying it. I say this guardedly, but for the time being, I'm having quite a good time with it.
I suppose there's something to be said for players who think, right, I've kind of missed out on League of Legends and Dota 2, but I'm going to get in on this one and be pretty decent at it from the start, rather than trying to jump in a couple of years later.
That is one advantage. I mean, if you haven't played a MOBA before, a lot of it's going to be pretty confusing. That's just the learning curve of the genre. But there are only, I think, about 20 heroes in it at the moment, which, compare that to Dota, which has about 115 now.
Most of them are Batman, aren't they? There's Batman, Gaslight Batman.
Batman, Junkie, Batman.
There are three Batmen right now, I think. You've got Batman.
Oh, okay.
You've got Batman, you've got Gaslight Batman, you've got Nightmare Batman. Nightmare Batman is a vampire.
Of course he is.
You've got Joker, Gaslight Joker, Green Lantern and Atomic Green Lantern. Wonder Woman, Atomic Wonder Woman. Atomic Wonder Woman is presumably... I think the Atomic Universe is like post-apocalyptic or something. She's sort of got a big staff with chainsaws on the end and stuff like that. And you've got Mecha Wonder Woman, who is a giant flying robot. Yeah.
DC has written some weird shit over the years.
I honestly don't know how many of these are DC and how many of them are basically created for the game.
Alright.
I don't know. I really don't know. There are, I don't recognise some of these, but then I'm not the biggest comic book fan in the world.
DC have a lot of spin-offs. I would be surprised if they were all DC in some way.
Yeah, they might well just be stuff from one-offs. It's... I kind of wish they would add more different heroes rather than the same heroes with different identities from different universes. Because, I mean, they all play completely differently.
Yeah.
They don't share the same powers. They don't even share the same type. But, I'd like to see some more outliers out there. I'm sure they're probably going to go and get, the rest of the common heroes in there. But I'd like to see some weird ones in there. I'd like to see John Constantine in there.
I would like to see Killer Moth.
That would be good.
That's Infinite Crisis. Those are the games we have been playing. Let's talk about what's on the site, which is mostly Paradox things at the moment.
It's Paradox have taken over, man.
They have reports from Miami, from the Miami show floor, of the stuff we were discussing earlier, basically. Hearts of Iron 4, Rune Master, EU4, Wealth of Nations, and Crusader Kings 2, Rajas of India. I think that's all of them. Coming up, we will have...
I, for one, welcome you Paradox Overlords.
Yeah. Well, if they keep releasing good DLC for the games that I enjoy, I'm quite happy.
I don't so much care about Europa Universalis and stuff, but as long as they keep doing, weird experiments like Magicka and Showdown Effect and stuff like that, I'm perfectly happy.
I'm glad you mentioned that. There's a Magicka Wizard Wars one as well. Talking about the new game mode, dual mode, I think.
Yeah, Arena mode or something.
Yes, so that one too. Coming up, videos of Banished, I think, when Paul figures out how to make himself look better at the game. Or something. Same for me, video of Blackguards when I figure out how to make myself look better at the game and like I know what I'm doing with Dark Eye. I've also written a bit of a editorial about the EA Battlefield 4 YouTube shenanigans, which will be coming out on the site soonish. Just reminding people that was a thing that's happened. It got forgotten about pretty much within a week, but let's not forget that EA was paying YouTube people to say nice things about Battlefield 4 and saying that they were making them declare that they were being paid to say the nice things, but not actually very closely policing the fact that most of them weren't saying that they were being paid to say nice things. So that's an interesting situation, which has destroyed the integrity of many YouTube channels, but no one seems to really care, unfortunately. I guess people don't mind watching shills. That's just the thing that they like doing now. Which is a bit annoying, really.
Well, it is annoying when you think about all the stuff that happened at GameSpot and people years ago, with scores getting boosted for ad money and all that kind of stuff. And people, I think the guy resigned over it, I think, or whatever. It's a big deal when it's a web thing.
You're talking about Jeff Gerstmann. I mean, he went and formed Giant Bomb. That's what things about. Yeah. Yes. So the games journalists' online integrity it's all corrupt lols. But YouTube, they literally took money from publishers to say nice things about games, and apparently that's fine because they're just entertainers, so it's okay. Yeah. All right then, whatever you reckon.
Next week we'll be talking about the new Battlefield flavoured Mountain Dew. It's extreme, I can tell you that.
extremely delicious. That's what I've heard.
Especially if you wash your Doritos down with it.
Yep. The Doritos taste like awesomeness and epicness. That's what I've heard.
They taste like shit. Just to be fair, they taste like shit.
Oh, did you buy the shit flavored Doritos, Paul? Because I have made that.
That's a classic mistake.
It was a very short-lived flavor, but
was it a limited edition?
Yeah.
I've not been in the UK for a while, but I know the UK goes for some weird crisp flavours, but that one is a little bit outside of left field. I don't know what they were thinking with that one.
Did they not have a hedgehog flavour at one point as a sort of funny? I don't know if it was Walker's or somebody.
Walker's did have Cajun squirrel flavour at one point.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
They also did Builder's Breakfast, which was, I think it was supposed to be, egg, sausage and bacon or something, and that was utterly repulsive.
Yeah.
The only one of those Walker's flavours that kind of worked was the chili chocolate one. And that mostly just tasted, it tasted a bit weird, and it generally just burnt your tongue so that you couldn't really taste it anyway, so that was fine. But the fish and chips flavour and stuff like that, fuck off, Walkers. That's disgusting.
Should we do a crisps article for the site? It seems like we all have quite a lot of crisps knowledge.
Yeah. Yes. Best flavours ever. Our top 10 flavour.
Yeah.
To eat while you're gaming, to have a tenuous tie-in. So all of that coming up. More stuff as well, I'm sure, as other games come out and stuff.
Yeah, well, we'll have things on the site. You should check the site every day to see what things there are, because you might like some of them.
Yeah, and if you just quickly as well, for all the people that are complaining that, oh no, the keys are gone, or oh no, I didn't get a chance to enter. Well, the reason the keys are gone and you didn't get a chance to enter is because you're not reading the site. So if you want to pick up freebies and good stuff, you got to check the site.
On that note, have we given away our Banner Saga? Or is that still running?
No, they're gone. They were given away on Saturday to the Nomad one and somebody else. I can't remember his name. That's terrible.
Someone else is out there enjoying the Banner Saga though, thanks to us. So good for them. And also, World of Warplanes stuff we gave away. I kept reading it as a World of Warplanes submarine, but it wasn't. It was a supermarine.
Yeah, it was a supermarine. Yeah, they were good. You can't actually buy those, I don't think, in game, so they were kind of pretty limited on the runs that were going out. With a few sites were giving away, but if you didn't get one, then it's tough.
Yep. Bad luck. Anyway, we'll be back again next week with more podcast action. Till then, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.